Afternoon and welcome to our webinar this afternoon. We'll be talking with members of the D&T Association. We'll be talking with team members from KI and the Furniture Makers Guild, and we will be talking about their Inspired by Industry and how to get involved with a competition which you completed this. I'm going to hand you across to Paul from the D&T Association. Hi, Paul.
Hello. How are you, Amy, today?
Always a pleasure when you're here, Paul, obviously.
Likewise, Amy. Right, let me just get this going and stop laughing. So I'm sure if you've already heard of Inspired by Industry, hopefully you can't see all of my screen there. There is a webinar out there. There is a recording of that, and we've also done a breakdown of the webinar. I apologize for my low voice. It's been a long week. But just to summarize before we go on to the sort of the KI context itself.
I can't see your screen, Paul.
You can't see it?
Can you, Laura? No, it's not sharing properly.
It's come up as like a black screen at the minute.
Yeah.
If you unshare it, I reshare it.
I've got a big green box around it which says it's active.
Okay.
Let me stop sharing and try
Technical hitches, everyone. We'll be with you in just a moment. Hi, Pat. Good to see you again.
Tell you what, let me try this because I think I've got two screens. It might just not like the fact I've got two screens. So if I go to...
Oh, Rebecca could see the presentation.
Can you see the presentation now?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's a two-screen thing. So in summary then, we set out to do this across Key Stage 3. So we have context for years 7 to 9. They're pitched at a certain age group, but you can use them wherever you want. We've heard of year 9 being used in year 7 and vice versa. I've even heard of some of these being used for GCSE and A-level. So we just sort of pitch them to the sort of level we think they're right for, but you can use them wherever you wish. They are free, and we have quite a few companies on board. Let me just tab through these. Now, this is the first wave, which is why KI aren't on there. They're basically due to be released or just have been released. So that's the first set. The website's live. So if you go to inspiredbyindustry.org.uk, you can literally get hold of these now. And for clarity, you don't have to be a data member to get the context. They're free to everybody. There are some units that go with that are free to data members. Again, no charge as long as you're a member, but the contexts are free for everybody. And when you download the context, they are a series of PowerPoints. This is just a summary of the sort of front pages. There's about 30 to 40 slides in each, fully editable. So the idea is that along with the supporting units and curriculum units, you can create your own unique curriculum from these rather than just being stuck with some sort of static PDF resource. They come with supporting documents as well to talk the teacher through it. This is the current set of documents at the moment. As you see, they're pitched there to cover key skills in years 7 to 9 to prepare your students for GCSE. So they're already looking at contextual skills here in year 7. They're learning to break down a context, a challenge if you like, and write their own brief, which means that there is a natural crossover when they get to year 10. They've already covered many of the skills they need, and then year 10 can be essentially a way to put this into practice. Again, I'm just going to go through very quickly. There are a bunch of supporting units for each context. They are unique. So I've just been working on one today. KI is one of my favorites, actually, because I studied furniture and I found there were plenty of units I could do here. And things like modeling in solid edge using FEA, generative design. So there's some really good supporting units for this. And there's a bunch of curriculum units as well. So these are generic, things like 2D drawing, 3D, how to use solid edge. And so you can take those, take the supporting units, weave them in with the context themselves, and essentially make a unique curriculum. So that is the Inspired by Industry bit. And if I just quickly go over to, if I stop sharing, by the way, can you see that? Yeah, great. So in terms of what they look like, I'm going to have to put this on the other screen now as well. This is the KI. I'm not going to go into any great detail there because it's basically out there. I think, Laura, is it already live?
Not yet. No, not yet. We haven't launched it yet.
Okay.
I don't know if we're doing them all as a group.
All right, it's imminent. Can you see the KI one there on screen?
We can. So essentially, this is a sneak preview, Paul, is it?
It is, yeah. I mean, there's nothing secret about it. It's the same format as all the rest. And, unless you're very good at screen grabbing every single one of these, it's basically just to show you what the format looks like very quickly. There's a summary of the course or the resource itself, what actual aspects of the curriculum it covers. And then there's this sort of summary page where you can just check whether it's right for the age group. So this is sort of mid to mid-late Key Stage 3, Year 8, about 10 to 12 weeks, covering innovation, ergonomics, things like that. At this point, you can just say, right, this is not for me. I'll look at the others. It might just not meet your needs, and that's absolutely fine. That's why we're trying to cover as many as we can. You get your content, and then every section is introduced by somebody from the company themselves. So in this case, it's somebody from KI introducing the context. Then we introduce the context itself in text form. Again, a video looking at empathize, which is basically the investigate stage. We give you sort of ideas, hints, if you like, at things you could do in class. It basically just works through the whole design stage or design process with videos from people in the company. Nobody at the Design Technology Association, no generic YouTube videos. These are all bespoke filmed for us. You can't get them anywhere else. So as it works through that, we give you tips on how you can use this in your classroom as well. And we give you sort of practical examples as we go through, get the idea here. The video is the most important thing, but we'll go through each one and they'll be the same sort of format. But we'll give you certain case studies you can look at, like how to minimize parts when laser cutting, or how you can be more productive, things like that. Making folding items rather than sort of taking space up, because this is all about minimizing space. And towards the end, good grief, we will also suggest focus tasks you can do. So you might not want to do a full design make assignment with your students. You might just say, right, I want to use this context to deliver a unit on CAD modeling, or I want to use it for 3D printing. So there'll be that, and then there'll be one on investigate tasks as well. So you can look at fashions and trends in furniture, or how you can use FEA to test, and we'll give you a piece of furniture and you show you how to actually apply all the different forces, etc. So that's basically the unit. And at the end, there are teacher slides, which are grayed out if you're running these in class. And they just, again, give you more details on how you can do the empathize section, how you can look at defined tasks, ideate, prototype, etc. And we give a little level of challenge at them, which basically says, if you want to use this with like lower ability or younger students, then you could do the context with a brief, or you could do a supported context, or at the other end, a fully open context, which is essentially what they'd be doing at GCSE. Every context has the same format, but they never have the same content. Each one's made unique and bespoke. So that is Inspired by Industry in a nutshell. And that's the KI context, which is due to be released with a bunch of others. There we go.
Fabulous. Thank you, Paul. Taylor, should we hand over to Lee next, or would you like to present next?
I'll start.
Okay.
Let me just see if I can present this.
I did see you in the video, Lee.
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah, you were there.
It was a bit fuzzy. We could have played it and he would have gone very HD, but for today, Lee, a bit fuzzy.
That's all right.
We've got him in real life today. We don't need to see the recording.
I don't know why I'm struggling with this. Sorry, 1 second.
If you're struggling, Laura, I can share it for you if you wish.
That's okay. I've got it now.
Fabulous.
All right. Can you see that?
Yep.
Perfect. So my name is Taylor. I'm the Education and Training Manager at the Furniture Makers Company. We are a livery company / charity. I'm going to be really quick because we're not super important. Oh, and we've gone to the end of the slides. That's my bad. All right. So really quickly, livery companies, they arise from the historic guild system, kind of like trade unions, but not really. But what our central purpose is, we do education, we do excellence, and we do welfare for people in the industry. Obviously, today we're focusing on education. So to introduce you to our chairman, this is Chris. He chairs the education committee and is going to talk a little bit about our initiatives.
Yeah, thanks, Taylor. I chair the Education Training Committee, and what we have quite a lot of events that we do. So the idea is that we are trying to provide a pipeline of talent, sort of young talent, that would go into the industry, and it's quite a varied industry. It's quite diverse. You don't have to just be a maker or designer. There's other roles as well. We have things like My Furniture Career, which is a website where we can direct those who are interested in a career in furniture and furnishings. And we post jobs on there, and we have case studies, and we have sort of clips. So that's a really good resource for teaching, for direction into this industry. We do a school design prize, which is what part of this Inspired by Industry is all about. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And we have the design prize in the big exhibition that we run in October, where we have all of the industry come to look at work that's been shortlisted. So there's an opportunity here to have your students exhibited with their pieces alongside everyone else, which would be a fantastic achievement and a certificate for their efforts. We run regional events, we run young professional tours as well. So here's on the screen now some examples of some of the work that's been done. And this is a part of our bespoke and our sort of design and textiles award, almost senior categories for those students who once upon a time were at school, probably did GCSE, probably did work beforehand and got interested, probably did A-level and then have gone on to either work at a specialist college, a training provider, or at a university. And there's lots of places around for those students who are really interested in what can I do with designing and making something with my hands. So the idea of this partnership is to make sure that we can recognize young talent and help them find a place in the industry where they could be successful and happy in the things that they love doing.
Brilliant. If I could get Lee to talk a little bit about KI.
Hi there, I'm Lee Andrews. I'm the design manager at KI. We manufacture office furniture, predominantly, so storage, workstations and seating, but also we manufacture education furniture as well, such as the Postura classroom chair, which you're probably all familiar, the one-piece poly chair, which is in pretty much every school in the UK. I'm sure you're all quite familiar with it. We've been involved with the School Design Prize for a couple of years now. Our MD, Jonathan Hindle, has been a member of the livery since way back. I don't know, it's been longer than I can remember. And he's always been interested in working with young people and students and bringing people through into the design industry. And as designers here ourselves, we feel like we can offer some insight into the world of design and hopefully encourage people to take up that path. We do quite a lot of work with student placements in-house, and we get people from Morley College is one of our regulars. So they come in, we'll work with them for a week, show them how the design process works, show them how the industry works with manufacturing. A lot of work around the CAD system, which is quite important for designers these days. And then during the week, we might give them an assignment to do, maybe a project based around what they've learned, and come up with a small presentation at the end of the week, just as kind of a sample project that you might have typically. We're also doing something more informal. We've got a competition recently where we did like a Charlie and the Chocolate Factory type competition, where if you bought a surprise plastic golden chair and you won a ticket to the factory that manufactures the chairs. So we've got a class of 30 year 10s, I think, going up to injection molders in the Midlands, where they're going to see all the tooling and production of the chair in action, which is quite an interesting day out, and it's very insightful, and I think it's a lot of fun. So basically, that's what we do, and we're just keen to offer students an insight into the world of design.
Brilliant. Okay, I'm going to hand it back to Chris to talk a little bit about connecting students from the program to the actual exhibition.
Thanks, Taylor. And yes, and just sort of echo Jonathan Hindle, absolute massive supporter for this project, and we wouldn't have this off the ground if it wasn't for him. So so we have a resource inspired by industry, which will be used in the curriculum to help students come up with design development and a scale model of a chair. The tips then for applying for the school design prize. We would send out applications around about April, May, okay, for submission in the third week of June. Okay, they then get assessed over the summer, ready to be shortlisted at the exhibition at Furniture Makers Hall in London for around sort of October time. So what we're looking for is we are looking for work where we can exhibit initial design ideas, the design development, a CAD drawing, and a scale model of what the project produces. Okay, and then that will be put forward. We have an upload system on Zealous, which is quite straightforward to use, and you'd get all the support from us at Furniture Makers Company on how to upload your students' work. And so what we would do then is we're recommending, we want clarity and we want the work to tell a story of what was the idea, how did you design and develop it, what was the final CAD drawing of the sort of final piece, and then do a scale model in foam or cardboard or 3D. We're not expecting for the 11, 14-year-olds to do full size. But if you have students who are 15 to 18, and then you could produce a full-size prototype. And we generally shortlist about 8 pieces to go into the hall. Okay, so there's 2 areas to focus on here. For the younger students, some sort of design work with a scale model. And then for the older students, a full-size prototype. Now, 15 to 18, that's quite a age range. What we've noticed in the last 3 years, that generally the 15-year-olds outperform the 18-year-olds. So, which is why we've kept it to that sort of age range. So the idea being is that we'll have 2 sections of this competition on display at the exhibition in October. One for the 11 to 14-year-olds, which will be more sort of 2D with a small scale model. And then for the 15, 18-year-olds, a 3D piece, which would have some supporting design work as well. Okay, so that would be an invitation to come up to Furniture Makers Hall to stand with the work, where all the industry will go around, a chance to develop some communication skills, and also to network that if you do have students who are looking to progress into design and making, then this is a really good, friendly industry to get involved.
Yeah, I also just want to add that we do have travel bursaries available for students that can't necessarily afford the transport themselves. We give away a huge amount of these every year, so they are available in case cost is an issue. Here's our website. The QR code is an application link. They're not quite officially open now, but you're able to submit pretty much whenever up till June. We haven't finalized the deadline, but it will be 3rd week in June. And then this is our website and our Instagram.
Chris, can I ask when the entries would be on public display? Because a lot of 16-year-olds might be or would be likely working on their NEA, their GCSE project, which they're not allowed to share publicly, I think, until sort of the end of the summer. They're not allowed to share live work, and I don't want to restrict the applications, but would they be displayed publicly before the end of the summer?
No. So they're displayed publicly in October.
It should be fine.
So we would just need to have some evidence to shortlist through the judging panel, and we've got a secure site for that.
And is it acceptable if they entered their basically their examination work, because that's what they would be mostly doing at that age? Is that okay?
Yeah. So in the past, that's generally what has happened. We've had students enter their sort of final pieces, and then have gone on display sort of in the autumn. Now, what that has meant when it comes to the A-level students, you've got represented at a school, but now in the October, probably coming back from a university in order to stand by their piece.
And I know, Laura, you went to the show, didn't you, in London this year?
I did, yes. Yeah, it was a brilliant show. Like, I definitely recommend, popping down there. There's a lot of great graduate work on display, a lot of like young talent. And, yeah, it was a great event. A lot of good talks as well. A lot of good industry talks. So, yeah.
Fabulous. Sorry, Paul, I think there was just a comment which I can't answer. I don't have the knowledge, so I'm going to have to push that one to you if I can.
Perhaps put January after the GCSE to show the work in public. My understanding is once they've returned to school and they've not contested their marks, that's the end of it. Always check with your NEA advisor or your exam board, but that's my general understanding, because they cannot make an application for a remark after, I think it's like the first week in September, something like that. So generally a lot of work goes in October because it's no longer classed as live. That would be the year 11 work.
Okay.
But
We
again,
we can certainly sort of look into that.
If it's helpful to know, it's also next year going to be the end of October, so October 28th.
Okay, so a couple of extra weeks, because I think it was a bit earlier this year, wasn't it?
Yeah, the date's changed by quite a bit for next year.
Perfect. Did anybody have any questions about what they've seen, how to sort of get involved with the competition? I know there's a few. I mean, if you can't chat because you don't have the microphone, pop them into the chat and we can have a look. Paul, I noticed you did a sneak peek there. Let's have a look at what we've got. So the supporting units, we've got CAD modeling, 3D printing, remote manufacturer, evolution of the check. That sounds exciting. I like that one.
it is exciting.
Finite element analysis. You might have to explain that one to me as a non-teacher, Paul. Sorry.
FEA just allows you to assign a material to an object you've modeled and then apply forces to it and watch how it reacts under those forces. So in this case, the unit makes a very basic sort of plastic chair with a back and then puts a force of roughly two mid-sized human beings on it, fixes the legs to the floor, and then literally animates and shows you where the stresses will be. And it sounds complicated, but with something like Solid Edge, it's literally 6 clicks. You assign the load, you assign where it is, you choose the legs to be fixed, and you press mesh and solve, and it does all the work for you. So it takes you through it step by step. Fortuitously as well, it's a CAD modeling unit, so that will help with those who need to produce a CAD model, and there's a 3D printing unit as well. So for this unit, I think, has the most furniture specific context, which I enjoy doing because that was my specialism. So that would cover essentially quite a bit. I think what would be helpful to clarify, Chris, while we're here, is because the context is minimizing parts, it's quite broad. How much does that affect the brief itself? I.e., would the sort of winning criteria be something where you've reduced waste or parts or things like that? Is that a criteria they're looking for? Because it's a very open context.
We normally will have criteria which will be such like is it designed is it designed with aesthetics? So is it pleasing to look at? Constructionally, would it work? How is sustainability taken into consideration? And what's the thinking process on that journey from idea to a scale model?
So the context is a good starting point for them to think about, because there's lots of references in there about how we can reduce components or reduce bulk or things like that. And the FEA, Amy, is a way of doing that, because you can keep testing the model with less and less material and see if it still takes the same weight, and that's a good thing as well.
Now you've told me what it is. I've actually been in a Solid Edge webinar where you've run through that, and I know exactly what you're talking about, like a stress test. But that would, yeah.
It's ridiculous. It is very difficult to use in some programs, I find, but in Solid Edge, and I'm not being paid by them or anything like that. It's just six steps. It's the same for generative design. They have almost the same workflow, so you can generate different variations of your chair using AI, which is built into it, which is very topical as well.
And Lee, with what you do you use a lot of CAD? I know but what sort of stress tests and things, is that sort of super? I keep saying super relevant. Sorry.
For some of the products, it is. Some isn't. We can do stress analysis, and we use Inventor, which is a parameter-based 3D program. But we can do stress analysis, and so eventually, yeah.
So again, another real-world test that students can apply to the work.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Sorry, Paul. There was just a question in the chat. Again, it was for you. That's what
I've answered, and I'm typing a bit more. It's all right.
Okay, keep typing. I'll fill the space. Don't worry, keep typing. So the question was just about CAD software. There are various softwares you can use, and different inspired by industry use different contexts. I think if you do the KI, there are some, but I want to say Inventor is Autodesk. Yeah. So there are some things in there from that program showing you how to do different things. Each unit some might have Onshape, some might have Solid Edge. It's down to the individual's preference, but the idea of what Paul's doing with the supporting materials is to give your students the different programs, and then each student will find, or each teacher will find, the one that works best with what they're doing. Is that right, Paul?
To clarify, there's no bias. We cover everything from SketchUp to Tinkercad through to, there's even SolidWorks, but we're conscious that SolidWorks is not free and is quite expensive for schools. They don't offer any sort of school license, which is free. Solid Edge is now completely free, and it would be on par with SolidWorks in terms of features. They've basically made the full package free for teachers. No serial number, no licensing, so you have none of the install. Every feature you want, and it's even got Keyshot renderer built in, which is normally about £1,200 on its own. So there's nothing to touch it. But the only downside is it's a Windows-only install. If you've got a Windows machine, I think it's a no-brainer. It's a terrible term, but I'd install it and just try it. You will love it. If you haven't got Windows, for that sort of level of FEA, etc., you're going to have to use Fusion. Or if you've got SolidWorks, great, but it's quite expensive, but it's a great package.
So your Autodesk, we have Fusion as well, but we tend to use Inventor. But
yeah,
Fusion's a good one. I think you can get quite a good, decently priced educational license, I believe.
Fusion's completely free.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, and I think they've got cloud-based as well, Pat. I know you said it's multi-platform. So again, when we've got Mac schools, Fusion's your only option for that high-end stuff, because Onshape and Tinkercad and SketchUp, they don't have FEA, generative design or rendering, things like that. So your top end is Fusion, SolidWorks, Solid Edge. All cloud-based is pretty grim, isn't it, Pat? But at least they've got the option there. So if you've got very slow computers, you can at least use the Fusion cloud base. Plenty of options now. When I started out, there was nothing, and what you had to buy was very expensive. So,
do you find with the CAD packages now, Paul, are the features quite interchangeable across them in a sense? Because are they quite sort of similar interfaces?
Yeah, definitely. Because I'm a SolidWorks user, diehard SolidWorks, and my license ran out, and so I thought, crikey, I need to move over to something. I literally opened SolidWorks, brought on my Solid Edge, brought all my SolidWorks files in, modeled them, and rendered them. So I didn't really have to do any relearning. It's just things like SketchUp has a very sort of draw, block, push, pull type mentality, a bit like Tinkercad. And then you get into your parametric, which is your Onshape onwards. Pat, did you have a question?
Yeah, no, just a little input there, on Fusion when I said that. Because loads of our students have used it, and it's really good for getting into university and stuff like to create the portfolio. And even though someone said they went away, and then so we have SolidWorks now, but they said, oh, it's so easy to go from Fusion to SolidWorks. I said, yeah, because it's just the interface changes, like when you said about there, with SketchUp, because I started at SketchUp and then ended up at Fusion, sort of thing like that. It's just like literally the layout, as long as you get used to how the layout is and where you find shortcuts and stuff like that,
Yeah.
And what we quite liked about Fusion was there's loads of tutorials. And I mean, videos you can watch endless, for students to get to do stuff.
Yeah, I mean, Autodesk are great to support, and they really are. And Tinkercad is essentially baby Fusion. It's a gateway to Fusion, and you can even bring your models in from Tinkercad, and you can get quite detailed with Tinkercad. It just doesn't have that hierarchy. The one thing about Solid Edge, I don't want to get into a sort of biased thing, is they've got a new AI generated sort of approach which allows you to model like it's plasticine while still keeping all the sort of the dimensions driving it, but you're not stuck to sort of going back and changing the shape of the square four levels back. You can literally just grab it and pull it and type in the dimensions. So it absolutely blew my mind when I saw that. You can model fluidly but in a very accurate way. So think of how you learnt in SketchUp, but with the sort of technicalities of Fusion, and that's what Solid Edge has got in there. Very, very impressive. But again, Windows only. That's a drawback for a lot of schools.
Autodesk Fusion also have a good, just talk about tutorials. They have like a CAD in 90 minutes, which is a free course, and that's quite worth. I'll pop the link in the chat. That's worth going on.
Yeah, I mean they're all great. And I don't want to beat down on SolidWorks because I love it, but it's the only package now that's not available either very cheap or free. I think it's probably £600 a year, which is quite a lot for some schools if they can get a cheaper alternative.
And Chris, I know that you obviously have another role as well. What sort of CAD are your students using? Because it's completely furniture courses. Is that right? I'm trying to recall.
So a couple of roles. So I ran Rycott Wood Furniture Centre in Oxford for 25 years, and with that we were very much across Fusion 360. And we found that the SolidWorks tended to be more towards the engineering. I think it comes down a little bit to personal preference. My current role, I work for World Skills UK, so we are the Skills Olympic team, and we go out and compete with competitors across the world. And next week we have the nationals in Manchester, and we tend to be working on computer-based packages. Our sponsors tend to be Autodesk for the competitions that we run. So we have competition-based learning. So how do you train someone up from inspiring them to mastery, so that they can perform not just with the skills but also the knowledge, and in particular the way that they can hold themselves in behaviours to compete with the best of the best in the world. And the UK sits at about 10th out of 80 countries that compete in the Skills Olympics.
Amazing. You might find that Laura reaches out to you.
The personal choice. Sorry, Chris nailed it with the personal choice thing. It really is. There's nothing you can't do in Fusion that you can do in Solid Edge and SolidWorks, etc. You are limited when you go to the other end. So SketchUp and Tinkercad will be limited to what you can do because of basically their interface. But it is down to personal preference. And I like SolidWorks. Chris likes Fusion. Pat likes Fusion. Someone else likes Solid Edge, and that's it. Personal preference. They all do the same thing very much.
Okay. I was going to say one more thing, and it's gone out of my brain. Oh, Chris, you might find that Laura reaches out to you about the World Skill thing as our magazine editor on a completely different note. I
don't know if I've emailed you before, Chris, but I'll in the past, but I'll
we have spoken in the past, and when I had a different hat on. But
that was it. It was when you were at.
It's when I was director of Activate Learning.
And I think it's important to think about competitions and young people going to these competitions about the life skills and the things that they're getting from that as well. Laura and I recently went to a competition, and this was for they're about waist height. They're 9 or 10, and these young people, their teacher had entered them in a competition. They'd never actually been out of Birmingham. They got on a train, they went to Coventry. It was a really inner city school. And I think just the competitions and the fact that there may be subsidiaries available for travel if people can't. I think the access to this for some students will just be invaluable. I mean, the teachers here, they might disagree, but from the feedback we were getting from these young people, some of them, I mean, it's not heartstrings here, but some of them had never been on a train. Like the whole day was just brilliant, and they went to their competition, and then they toured the venue that had the competition, and they spoke to people, and they got experiences. So we're hoping, and I know that this is part of why Chris and Taylor do it, is that your young people have some experiences, and if they have a passion for this, they then get to network with people that can maybe show them some of the routes into the careers and meet people like Lee that's doing it and get some idea of what it looks like in reality.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's important that young people, in the age range that we're talking about, get to practice, get exposure, get to practice, particularly when they hit further education or apprenticeship, where all of a sudden they're having to perform to achieve a qualification in a finite amount of time under set conditions. Now, project-based learning is brilliant, and it has a place. But with competition-based learning, what we can do is we can design short pressure tests to get young people interested and coping with, you need to make this and you've got X amount of time and I'm going to distract you as well, so you can learn how to master. And we increase that skill as we go on. So actually the thing that then helps move excellence is the assessment and the assessment conditions, as opposed to the actual task itself. You can complex the task, but actually it's about the way that you put assessment on, and we see that through the whole of the educational sort of world. So at World Skills UK, although we have our national competitions and our international competitions, we have a platform which is called the Learning Lab, where there's these downloadable free resources where that can be sort of embedded into the curriculum to help sort of test. And we learn everything from our international stage. And I think in this country, we're very good at just looking inwardly by sort of where we are nationally or against the next school locally. But what we look at is how are we competing with the best countries in the world to raise the standards. And that's how we advise governments and inspectorates into what we do.
Oh, I was muted. Thanks, Chris. Did anybody else have any questions? Anything that you wanted Paul to sort of clarify about the context? You've got him here. You can pick his brains for the next 18 minutes. I'm picking on Paul again.
Yeah, 18 minutes brain picking. While waiting for any questions, it's worth just bringing that full circle. What Chris is saying, and yourself, Amelia, about the importance of competitions, bringing industry into the classroom. That's essentially what these are doing. We find a lot of competitions or the experiences are sort of 15 onwards, or even FE, and we just think that that's quite a bit. It's a bit late, really. We want to be bringing in the idea of what does industry really do? What is design? Encouraging things like design thinking, but there's a myth that we're somehow with that inspired by industry, just sort of, doing design thinking, soft skills, and not doing anything. All the focus tasks reference things like, how you could use certain tools or processes. What we don't have is a unit where it says use a lathe to make something, because not everyone's got a lathe. So how you interpret that and what you use in your classroom is entirely up to you as a teacher. We suggest things like, create a model, make a mold for a vacuum forming. You can do that with foam, with a lathe, whatever it may be. That's why we're not that specific. But again, we just want to bring in real context so students can see the real world of industry, but then have a go at it themselves. And we don't, again, dictate things like make a chair, make a stool. It's minimize parts. Look at how, a one-piece chair is more effective in either manufacture or recycle, or whatever, than a chair with multiple parts that need to be dismantled and things like that. And it's weighing up as well. An office chair is very ergonomic, very adjustable, but it has all those parts. So quite a lots of different routes teachers can take, but ultimately they are linked to a real context from industry, and that's the real fun part of it. I think we're not making them up, as you say; they come from real companies.
Perfect, thank you. Well, if nobody's got any questions, we will.
Can I just add in there?
Course.
Sorry, go back to the competition, because we absolutely right. It's really hard when some schools have funds and some schools don't. And I think what we're really keen on with this competition is that, because it's a kind of design into a prototype of a small scale something, we are not going to be judging the best looking wood or those who have been able to produce it in a certain way because they've got the kit. It's pure to the design thinking process, and the design thinking process is certainly being sort of raised with the new government. Of how critical it's going to be, and we see that on a world stage on the process of design thinking, as opposed to materials that are sustainable, but the process of being able to design think is going to be certainly one of the future skills where young people will be able to get employment, and that's why we think this project, for the Inspired for Industry with KI and Design and Technology Association, is definitely the right thing to be doing.
I agree.
I can answer Rebecca's question in the chat if that's helpful. The deadline is 3rd week of June. The judging happens over the summer-ish. Most shortlisting goes out mid-July, and then they get confirmed kind of July to September as people go back to school. There's probably last year I think we had 40 applications and there were 8 shortlisted, so that's kind of the range.
Is there a link you could paste there, Taylor, while the teachers are online, so they can just literally click on that? Have we already got that, or it's?
Yes. I've got it in the presentation, which I can share after if you'd like. But I know Taylor will have the link. She's super organised.
It's true what you say, Chris. I go out banging this drum a lot, but there's just a dearth of creativity in the world in general, and creative thinking. It's what government, or it's what industry's been asking for years, and they're not getting enough of it. So, the skills aside, materials, craft, artisan, they're all very important, but we just need to imbue students with the ability to solve problems and to think for themselves and to be creative in different ways, which I think is a great way of doing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Taylor's just going to put the link in the chat. After the call, the recording that we've made will be edited by Laura. That's going to be on our member-only page, but as you joined the webinar today, you will get a copy of that. We have Taylor's presentation, which I'll just double check with her, that we can share with you. And the Inspired by Industry, I believe, goes live, and I'm looking at Laura here. Is it the 19th? About the 19th in my brain for some reason, that KIs will be the next wave. You're on mute, so still on mute.
Still muted, Laura.
That's the end of the day. Towards the end of the... we're doing the washing machine project on the 19th. But I think we're releasing them all as a wave. Yeah. So yeah.
Fabulous. So that will be shortly available. What we can do is we can arrange to email you those that have been on the webinar to let you know that it's now live, just to ensure that you have access to that. Love to see any bits of work, any work that you do with, and absolutely put it into the competition. I think that is great. I think it's great for your young people. But if you're not, we'd still love to see the bits of work. I know sort of KI have spent quite a lot of time doing videos and working with our team. Taylor and Chris have obviously been the driving force behind putting us in contact with KI, and it'd be great to see some of the work that your students are putting together from this context, to see where their creativity goes. Couldn't say creative then. Where their creativity goes, and what pieces of work are being put together. And Laura's always looking to feature these, to celebrate young people's work. So lots of things we can do. Ideally, it's the competition. That would be the ideal. There we go. Oh, Rebecca's after knowing if there's a chance of a tour of the injection molding factory. I will leave that one with you. It's in the chat.
I'm just going to quickly put my email in the chat as well. If just if you do any work on bits, and do send it over, and we could look at maybe.
And that would probably go in practice, would it, Laura?
Yes, Practice magazine. Yeah.
So for any of you that don't know, and I know many of you do get these magazines. There's termly magazines that come out. We have Practice, which I'm going to hand over to Laura because she always tells this better than me.
So yeah, as Amy just said, Practice magazine. We issue 3 of those a year, and it's just it's showcasing what's going on in primary and secondary D&T. So it could be like a department profile. It could, be a product review, book review, and it really is just sort of a showcase on what different schools are doing. So if you are working on the inspired by industry context, or in fact if you are doing any work like projects that you think you'd like to share, because it serves as an inspiration piece as well for other teachers. So it's definitely valuable for that. So do drop me an email.
Love this. Okay, I think.
Can I add then, as far as the the question about where is there this to go and see? Obviously, the Furniture Makers Company, we have all the key contacts in furniture across the country. Obviously, the project is KI's, but KI is not going to be able to cope with every school in the country coming through the doors. It would just slow down production. But if there was can we go and see something and help that experience, then we certainly would be able to try and see if there's any opportunity to link up across the industry, across the various regions as well.
Fabulous. And I can see that Taylor's popped her email address in there to assist with any connections that can be made. You're more than welcome to reach out to Laura or myself, and we'll speak with Taylor on that. I do know that Chris, Taylor, Lee, they all have a passion for what they do. They all have a passion for furniture and a passion for young creatives to come through. So they do offer support wherever they can. And worst case scenario, if it's a busy time, Lee said he's had a busy week this week, and he just made it here with us. But if it's a busy time, unfortunately, they may have to push back and say, not this, I can't help you this time. But generally, industry are looking to engage with you as teachers and essentially their future workforce, which are your students. So fabulous. Thank you, everyone. Hopefully you've all enjoyed the session. You may go away and have some more questions. Don't hesitate to send them across. We can sort of put them to the right person, whether that be Chris, Taylor, Lee, or Paul, or Laura. I won't have any answers, so I will just be the directions on that. But yeah, thank you ever so much for coming. It was a pleasure to meet you all. And if you do need anything, do reach out.